Hello, this is Professor Angel, and I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about the Blended English 101 course that you signed up for this semester. And I would first like to say welcome and thanks for coming along for this really kind of innovative and exciting opportunity. I'm sure you're sitting there and you have quite a few questions about exactly what it is you've gotten yourself into. So I'm going to try to answer some of those questions for you and kind of let you understand what it is that is expected throughout this semester. So first, let's kind of talk about what a blended course is. And this is a kind of an interesting idea that Hack is leaning toward, and it's something that is in fact very, very popular in colleges across the country. But a blended course is really a hybrid model that enables students to enjoy some of the convenience of an online course while not losing the face-to-face element. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, over the years of teaching, I have had many students say to me that they would love to take an online class, but they really do appreciate and rely on that kind of interaction that happens in a traditional classroom. And this is kind of, a hybrid or a combination of the two. So it actually gives some of that convenience. Well, what does that mean? Well, instead of coming to class twice a week for an hour and 15 minutes, you will come to class once a week for an hour and 15 minutes. Now, that is not to say, of course, that you'll be doing less work. You will be doing the other hour and 15 minutes in the privacy or the comfort of your own home. All right? That is kind of the convenience of online learning. When I talk to my online students, I often say, hey, you don't have to get out of your pajamas. It doesn't matter if there's a snowstorm. You're just able to do the work because you're doing it from home. So the convenience aspect in a blended course is that, hey, you know what? Half the time you're at home doing it. The other part, the fact that you don't lose that face-to-face element is super important for many students. And it's great because you do come to class, you do get the validation from your professor, from your peers, and the people in your classroom. So it really does kind of combine the idea of online learning and traditional face-to-face learning. So that's in essence what a blended course is. Now, the next question should be in your mind, can I be successful in a blended class? And that is a question you definitely have to ask yourself because perhaps not everyone can. Who can be? Students that are successful in this course will understand a couple things. The first thing they'll understand is that online does not mean easy. And that's something I cannot emphasize enough. I've been teaching online in one way or another for well over 10 years now. And I have to tell you that many students that come into my classroom think, oh, well, it's on a computer and I can just fly through it and I get credit. And the truth is that in a lot of ways, online learning is a little bit more difficult than traditional learning. Why? Well, because you have to have motivation and a sense of responsibility. I'm not going to be in your houses saying, hey, you need to sit down and look over this week's material, or hey, you need to do this or that. I am not going to be as present handing you the content as I would be in a traditional classroom. It will in fact be up to you to be motivated enough to go in and look at it and to understand that it is your responsibility as a student to do that. So what kind of tips can I give you to be responsible or successful in this class? Well, first, I would say every Monday, and I say Monday because that would traditionally be, the beginning of the week. It's when your course material every week will be made available to you. It will be exactly at 12 a.m. on Monday. So those of you that are night owls, go right ahead then. I will be asleep, I guarantee that. But that is when the coursework will be made available to you each week. I highly, and I will say again, highly suggest that you go in that day and you review the materials. All right? The very first thing you'll see in Desire to Learn each week is a course assignment part, and if you go in, it will tell you every single week what we're going to do and what your responsibilities are for that week. So you need to make sure that you do that really, really early. Why? Well, first, if you don't understand something or something is not clear, you can immediately contact me and say, hey, Mrs. Angel, I don't get it, or I have a question about this. And it's really super important that you do this really early on in the week, okay? That way you won't get behind. The next reason why you want to do this early is because every single week, yes, that's right, every single week you'll have what's called a takeaway quiz, okay? And your takeaway quiz will be on the material from that week. All right, there's going to be a variety of different things that you'll find in the weeks. There's going to be information about grammar. There's going to be information about MLA format. There's going to be information about all kinds of different topics. And sometimes it'll be very similar to what we're doing now, where you hear me talking and you see a PowerPoint, or there might be links to different things that I want you to look at. Now, please don't take this as a really scary thing. I'm not going to look for little tiny details that I will ask you about. I'm actually going to, ask broad questions just to ensure you're doing the work. This is probably the most challenging part for you and me about this course, all right? That you have to come into my classroom prepared. You have to come into my classroom already having a little bit of a foundation of knowledge from what has been presented to you that week in Desire to Learn. So this is my incentive to you to make sure that you are actually doing it. It's really better than if I was not, because this is a definite external motivator. One that, in my opinion and my experience, seems to motivate students much more than anything else, and it's a grade. It's going to affect what grade you take out of this class. All right? And again, please don't think it's going to be something that I'm trying to trick you with, or it's going to be super difficult. What it is meant to do is ensure that you are looking over the materials. If you did look over them, you will know it. I guarantee that. If you did not, you won't. So please make sure you take every single week and the content that's in that week seriously and deal with it with a definite sense of responsibility. So the next thing you need to make sure that you are aware of is due dates. And I can't emphasize this enough. Now, there's going to be a very standard due date for you, and that's in your discussion questions and participation posts, okay? And that due date will always be Sunday night by midnight, before the new material turns over, if you will. Discussion questions and participation can never be made up. I've had many students over the years ask me if they can, and that's actually one of the things I'm pretty strict about, because the discussion questions and participation posts are meant to be done in the week that they're assigned, and they're kind of useless if they're done after the fact. All right? There will be additional deadlines. For instance, there are going to be things I want you to have done before you come to class that week. So there might be a deadline that, that would be the deadline, that you have an assignment ready to show me when you walk into class on our assigned day. However, you just have to kind of be vigilant. And I will ensure that you see these dates on Desire to Learn. All right, you will see them. They should be marked on the calendar, I believe. We'll make sure that there's no sort of confusion for you regarding due dates, but you have to do your part and be responsible and note them and follow them too, okay? Because there is a pretty strict kind of deduction if you miss due dates. With essays and things like that, you miss 10% for every class day it's late, which is 10%, guys, which is actually probably a letter grade in most cases. So you really have to be vigilant and pay attention to that. Now, what kind of assignments are you going to have in class? Well, you will have 2 weekly discussion questions, and they each have to be 150 words. Please don't sit and count the words and see if it's 150. It should just be about a paragraph, okay? That's what you're going to need to do for the discussion questions. There will be 2. You will also do 2 weekly participation posts. Now, what does that mean? It means that you will go into the different discussion threads and read some of your classmates' posts. When you do that, you will then respond to them in some way. Now, it's not going to be enough for you to say, oh, I agree with you. No, you're going to have to expand a little and add to the conversation. Really, our discussion question board kind of has 2 purposes. The first is that you are writing more. And there's one thing in the world that makes you a better writer, and that's writing. So that's really what the discussion board's about. However, the other thing it's about is kind of developing a bit of a relationship with one another, all right? And to understand and see what your classmates are writing about and thinking about, all right? So that's what you're dealing with participation posts. Notice there's no minimum word allowance there. You don't have to have 150 words. However, again, you can't just write, I agree with you. You have to in some way add to the discussion. You will have a total of 14 takeaway quizzes. Notice that there are 16 weeks in this semester. All right, the end of the semester, I usually have at least a week that's a work week, and there will obviously not be a quiz the first week of this class because I want to ensure everyone's on the same page and we understand what's expected before you walk in for that quiz. There will be 2 group writing assignments. Now, depending on the size of the class, this might be 3 people, or I may make it a partner project. But there will be 2 projects that you will be working on with a partner or partners. You will have a pre-writing assignment and a peer review for each essay that you're writing. And by the way, you will be writing 4 essays for this class. You'll be writing a narrative essay, a profile essay, an informative or definition essay, and a persuasive essay. Now, there are only a couple other things that make up the assignments, and those are your portfolio, that is really just you reflecting on your writing at the end of this class. You'll have an MLA test, and I know I have some students in here that had me last semester. This will be extremely similar. It's just, once again, making sure that you are understanding and using the basic elements of MLA format, and you will have a final exam. Now, in the past, I have exempt students that have an A average in my class, and I really have no reason not to continue that in this class. So understanding that if you have an 89.5 or above, you are exempt from the final. If you have an 89.4 or below, you are not. Now, I've had mixed reviews. My first semester I did this here at HAC Lebanon, I was very bummed out because I had several students that were very, very close and they were very, very bitter. And quite frankly, I almost just stopped the whole thing. But I do believe I will continue it. Guys, look, I don't give you a grade. You earn a grade. If you want that A, work for it all semester and you'll get it. If you don't make it for whatever reason, understand that I'm not out to get you and whatever else you may be thinking. It is your grade. Earn it. All right? So these are a few of the things I kind of wanted to touch as far as what I will be expecting of you and what you can expect this semester. So just kind of some words of wisdom overall. First, find a quiet workspace. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm sitting here recording this right now, and my son, my 4-year-old, is at daycare. I would never in a million years try to do work with him next to me because it just would not work. And you understand what I'm saying. You have to find a place that you can own, that's your own, that you can concentrate. Work through one module or week at a time. Don't become overwhelmed. Don't look at all the stuff you have to do. Look at a week in its entirety and say, okay, this is what I must do now. Ask questions as soon as you have them. Please do not procrastinate. Do not. If you're one of those people that likes to do it, please stop that immediately. And I'd love to thank you for giving this a chance. I think you'll enjoy it. I know I will. And please communicate with me any sort of problems that you have. I am very quick to respond to email, and I certainly will respond to yours. Thank you.